Today, I'm going to be taking you through some of the biggest what ifs when it comes to financial independence. Hello everyone, my name is Zach and welcome to On Cash Flow, where I help you become a master of your own cash flow. Now let's get started. Let's first discuss what tool I'm going to be using for this video. And the tool that I am going to be using is the Retirement Planner, which is located on the F.I.R.E software, or also known as the Personal Capital Dashboard. So right on here, they have a simple retirement planning tool that you can use for free. And right away, I just want to admit that this isn't necessarily my favorite tool for actual retirement planning, but it is another tool that you can use in your tool belt. You can use this because it's completely free, very easy to use. There is a much more in-depth calculator that I would recommend more called New Retirement, and I have done a video on that in the past, but this is one that is free that can be integrated into your online tracking software. Like, it's already there if you already have your accounts linked up on the F.I.R.E dashboard. For this particular scenario, I wouldn't pay too much attention to the actual chance of success that's presented using this tool, because the way that it calculates your chance of success is pretty fixed. So let me go ahead and put it right there on the screen for you. You can see this is how they project your portfolio value. And I don't necessarily like that you can't change this, like you can't change the inputs and the outputs on how they are calculating what your chance of success is. So that's a big reason why this is not my favorite retirement planning tool. But let's go ahead and see what this tool has to say with the baseline scenario that we're going to be using. So our baseline scenario consists of a $1.2 million portfolio. That's how much you're retiring with. And you're going to be using a 3.5% withdrawal rate, because that's closer to what more people have been talking about using rather than the 4% rule. So we're going to go with 3.5%, which will be $42,000 per year of spending. This is going to be two people, so two spouses, and their average Social Security benefit at age 67 is going to be $1,750 per month. And that's actually based on the data from the Social Security website of what the average payment is. And then I do have to put in some assumptions there, and here are the baseline assumptions. Their average tax rate is going to be 5%. So you divide their tax bill divided by their marginal income, that it'll be 5%. The average inflation rate is going to be 2.5%. The federal target inflation rate is 2%. So 2% over the long run is the Fed's target rate. And then the life expectancy we are expecting for both spouses is going to be 85 years old. So that is going to be our baseline scenario. We are going to change factors within this baseline scenario in order to get an idea of what if this happens in financial independence and see how it affects that plan. But really quick, I do want to mention one more time that I do have another video where I did much more in-depth on a much more in-depth retirement calculator known as New Retirement. I definitely want you to check out that video. I'll put it at the end of this video. But let's get into our scenarios now. And the first scenario we are going to run is, what if you live 10 years longer? What if you live 10 years longer than that life expectancy of 85 years old? So you live to 95 years old. What would happen to your chance of success? So I can go ahead and adjust this in the calculator to 95 years old of life expectancy. And wouldn't you know it, it had no negative effect on the expected success. And in fact, this calculation shows that if their spending remained constant, where they just adjusted upwards for inflation, starting at that $42,000 per year, once they start getting their Social Security benefit, it is so significant that it actually still increases their net worth. So actually, the longer they live, the longer their net worth actually happened to increase at the end of their life expectancy. Their spending remained constant, and yet they had this large new inflow of monthly cash flow from Social Security. So living longer, 10 years longer, doesn't seem to be a very big issue if you're using like a 3.5% withdrawal rate and you're adjusting upwards for inflation, assuming that inflation was around 2.5%. The next scenario I wanted to try out was, what if their tax rate doubled? In the baseline scenario, we said their average tax rate was going to be 5%. So 5% of their income is going to go towards taxes. So what if that doubled and it went to 10%? Well, when I went ahead and put this into the calculation, it had no effect on the chance of success. But I think this might be an issue with the calculator itself or something, because I even played around with, dramatically increasing the tax rate. So I'm not sure what the calculator is doing when it's trying to make the assumption, but it was not affecting the withdrawal rate. So unfortunately, when we're trying to use this calculator, the answer remains unchanged. It's still a mystery on what would happen if their tax rate doubled. I'm assuming that if their tax rate doubled, they would have to withdraw more money from their assets in order to cover that tax rate. However, maybe the calculator is just saying that, well, they're just going to spend it from their still $42,000 of spending, so it doesn't matter what their tax rate is. I'm not really sure how the calculator is doing it, but it is not affecting their withdrawals at all. So that's why, according to this calculation, this what if remains unanswered. However, in the other calculator that I mentioned before, the more more in-depth calculator, New Retirement, taxes are one of the really big categories within that calculation. So definitely using that other calculator is much better for figuring out taxes. And one more thing I do want to mention is I put a lot of work and effort and research into these videos. So I would really appreciate it if you just really quickly hit the like button on this video. All right, but going back to the what if scenarios here is another big one that a lot of people worry about. And that is, what if Social Security goes away? What if there are no Social Security payments once you reach that golden age? So let's see what the calculator has to say about that. It actually had a somewhat dramatic effect on your chance of success when I inputted $0 per month for Social Security. The baseline scenario was at 78%. And remember, I wouldn't look too far into that actually being the chance of success, only 78%. But let's just use that as our baseline. It went from 78% to 61%, which is a 17% decrease. So a very dramatic decrease in the chance of success when you don't have that cash flow coming in your later 60s. Now, the good news is that from a practical standpoint, I highly doubt that Social Security will go away. More than likely, we will have to see reductions in the amount of payments that go out because they are unsustainable at the current rates based on how many people are actually paying into Social Security versus how many people are actually taking Social Security. So there most likely will have to be changes eventually. However, it going away completely is probably very unlikely. And so this scenario, I don't think is even one that you would have to actually worry about. All right, now getting on to the next scenario here. This is probably one of the most scariest ones, and that is, what if inflation was double the normal rate? In the baseline scenario, we said that the inflation rate over the long run was going to be 2.5% and that the Fed's target rate was 2%. So we just went with 2.5%. What if it was double that over the long run? And that is a 5% inflation rate. This was the most devastating scenario to your investments. The baseline scenario success rate of 78% in the calculator went all the way down to 34%. That is a 33% decrease. So it cut your chances of succeeding in half. And that's because inflation was taking away more and more of your investment gains over the long run. It was dramatically making your money worth less and less over the long run, while you still had to increase your spending in order to keep up with that inflation, if you were making inflation adjusted withdrawals. And so it was dramatically decreasing your chance of success over a long time period as it compounded against you. So this is why this is one of the biggest threats to early retirement, to financial independence. If inflation remains high, and if that inflation adjusted return is not above and beyond the inflation rate, then it could be devastating to your portfolio. Now, with that scary scenario out of the way, this leads me to the big question. I want to know from you in the comments below. What is your biggest concern about early retirement, about financial independence, or about regular retirement in general? What is your biggest worry? Is it any one of these scenarios, or is it something else? Please let me know in the comments below. I'm really curious to hear what you have to say. And now, just for fun, let's go ahead and do the last scenario here, and that is, what if all of the above happened? What if you lived to be 10 years longer? What if Social Security went away? What if inflation was double what it normally is, and all that stuff? Let's see what actually happened to the chance of success. So the baseline scenario said 78%, but using all of these, it went all the way down to 10%. So basically, just forget about it. If all of those worst case scenarios happened at the same time over the entire time that you were retired, then your retirement is probably not going to work out according to the numbers, according to the data. But there is a glimmer of hope here, and that is, just think about this. Even the worst case scenario in early retirement, in financial independence, is most people's everyday scenario. You have to go back to work and you have to make money that way, right? That is the worst case scenario. So I don't think it really is all that bad, and we can still be thankful that we even have this opportunity in order to pursue financial independence. And even though this calculator I don't think is one of the best retirement planning calculators, it is something that you can go ahead and play around with. It's very easy to use because it's already on the Empower dashboard. If you've already signed up and you've linked all your accounts, and you can go ahead and use this tool for free. As I have mentioned before, I did do another video on a much better and much more in-depth early retirement calculator, or regular retirement calculator, known as New Retirement. So I definitely want you to watch that video if you haven't already, all right? It's gonna pop up on the screen right after I get off the screen. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'm Zach from OnCashflow.com, and I hope to see you next time.